So, Sarah, this year commodities have been big in the news, but in past years it hasn't been a big part of what we invest in. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about commodities this year, even on these videos, but in the last decade or so, they really fell out of favor as an investment strategy. I mean, they were not giving us good returns for one thing, and the sector was pretty volatile, so it's not really where you want it to be. However, now, obviously, different story. But as a result of that, we haven't had major investments in commodities areas that help prop up the sort of infrastructure that we need. So, for example, we favored big tech companies and the short cycle products that they create, like smartphones, for example. But what's inside the smartphones? Copper, for one.
Which
we
is
haven't
one of
really. That's a commodity.
Hot commodity.
Right.
So, with all the inflation that's going on, with the Fed increasing interest rates and stopping quantitative easing, won't that help the situation?
Yes and no. It could be a good short-term resolution, but it's not going to really solve our issues in the long term. I mean, for example, in the West, do you know the last time we built a refinery?
No.
1977. That's the year I was born. And if you want me to do the math, that's like many decades ago. So we haven't really been investing in these areas. So there's now a huge bottleneck. I mean, everyone is like, what's going on with these gas prices? But there's a huge bottleneck. I mean, we have oil coming out, but we don't have a place to refine the oil, and that's a huge problem. So to answer your question, I mean, we could, in the long run, work out some of these bottlenecks at refineries. But really, if you look around too, the areas in the world that have some extra refining capacity are Russia and China. Those are the only two countries. So,
and Russia and China are not shipping oil, like,
right,
especially Russia with the
yes.
war in Ukraine. So what about OPEC? OPEC's talking about increasing production. Won't that solve the problem?
Well, I mean, that will help a little bit, but they can only really ramp up supply by about 2 million barrels a day. And that sounds like a lot, but then you start thinking about the fact that China had lowered their demand for gas and oil because of their pandemic restrictions, and eventually that will pass. We're in just the very beginnings of summer, and historically gas prices go up in the summer, right? Because demand goes up as we all go on vacation. Well, this year we have record levels of demand. Everybody I know is on vacation right now.
It's pent up demand. So
yes.
A lot of people who haven't been able to go on vacation up to 3 years definitely plan on going on vacation this year.
And to make matters worse, right now we're taking oil from our federal oil reserves, but we can't do that forever. So that 2 million barrels a day is just not going to cut it. Oh, and not to mention the sanctions. We haven't really felt the effect of the sanctions that we've placed on Russia. So that's going to be yet another area. So, I really think that oil prices are going to continue to go up.
So it comes back to what we've been saying to our clients all along. You want to have a fair amount of money in high quality stocks for the long run, but you also want to have a fair amount of money in commodities, specifically energy, right? Because we think that the prices there will continue to go up, and so the stocks and those kind of investments should do well.
Yes. And I mean, at this point in time, with oil at somewhere it's in the 3 digits. It changes day to day, but the markup on that is much higher now than it was just a year ago. I mean, and that's because of these infrastructure issues around oil, the bottlenecks at the refineries, that sort of thing.
Well, and you mentioned something also about the gasoline production and the oil price. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
The markup?
Right.
Yeah, so it was about 20 to 25 times the cost of the oil is what gas costs. Now it's about 40 to 45 times. So it's significantly higher, just the markup itself. Again, because of bottlenecks at the refineries, et cetera. So we have some challenges ahead in terms of, and
Right.
I mean, we're at a place where we're all looking ahead, thinking about, oh, how can we invest more in solar and renewables, and that is important. But also, if we don't take a step back and think about these areas of the market that we're still very much reliant on,
For quite some time.
we're going to be in trouble.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very difficult time, and we know a lot of people are really worried about the situation. If you know anyone who could use our assistance, please give them our name and number, and we'll be glad to try to help them out if we can. Thanks a lot.